by switching to these dietary principles, I've been able to prevent cavities and be really healthy. Now, if you got just a horrible start, and we're seeing children now on the third generation of these bad diets, starting off life with leaky gut and lots and lots of problems, that's much harder to fix, I have to say. It's a real challenge to get these kids healthy. They have such a bad start in life.
So the kids are coming into the world with the chips down.
With it, yes, absolutely. Now, I must say we've had many people, report to us how much better their health was when they got on this type of diet. But at a certain point, there's only so much you can fix, and that's why we feel our message is really urgent, because this is a generation of children that's suffering the most, and we absolutely must reach prospective parents and teach them how to eat to have healthy babies and how to kind of get over your fear of the foods that you need to have healthy babies.
As important as this is, why hasn't it quite gotten to the mainstream?
Well, I think for one thing, no one was promoting it to the mainstream. We set up the Weston A. Price Foundation to make these ideas available to the mainstream. And I think there's been a kind of media closeout. You know what those are like. It's very hard to get our message in the mainstream media. The mainstream media is looking to their advertisers and their funders. And, of course, we have a system that's based on making people sick. Bad processed food and lots of pharmaceuticals and, big horrendous medical care system. So there's a lot of, economics riding on this system.
One heck of a machine out there.
Pardon me?
I said it's one heck of a machine out there.
It's a big machine, and we're a little cog in the machine. But what I am noticing is that things are picking up for us. Our membership is slowly but gradually increasing. And the biggest source of those members are people who are just desperate to find some way of improving their health, and especially the health of their children.
All right. For the listeners out there, if anybody's listening out there, I'm sure you are. There's some Twitter people out there saying they're listening right now. You can go ahead and call in. I'm going to take a few questions early for Sally, 347-237-5608. And so I'll ask a few questions, and you guys ask a few questions. We'll kind of do it that way, so feel free to call in. Let's get into the controversy, Sally.
All right.
Fats. I paid for my college education. I want my money back. Real. I'm paying these student loans, and I'm just like, it's hard for me to write that check or to click on my bank account because of the fact that I was given so much bad information.
Yeah.
What's the real deal about fat? Is saturated fat going to kill me?
Absolutely not. Your body needs saturated fat. Your cells need saturated fat. Your brain, your heart, your kidneys, your lungs, they all need saturated fat to work properly. Your bones need saturated fat. Basically, we are warm-blooded animals, and warm-blooded animals, because their bodies are warm, need saturated fat. Otherwise, they would not have the stability in them that's required for everything to work. And if you don't eat saturated fats, your body has a mechanism for making it out of carbohydrates. So that's why people often crave carbohydrates when they cut saturated fats out of the diet. But it's much better to eat the saturated fats from the animals because they have all the important vitamins in them as well.
Now, is this any animal, like straight across, or are we talking about organic, grass-fed, free-range, or are we talking about that?
Well, the better the animal has been raised, the more it's been in the sunlight and on, healthy green grass, the more of these critical fat-soluble vitamins will be in the fat and the organ meats. So yes, this is very, very important.
Now, I think one of the harder things with me when I'm dealing with clients who don't, have huge incomes or anything like that, or it is the quality. I get the question, am I going to be okay eating the feedlot animals? Is that something that, what's your stance on that?
Well, we don't like to make things so hard that people just give up. And we actually publish a shopping guide that includes items that people can buy in supermarkets. Because we don't want people to feel left out if they can't get the very, very best. And in that shopping guide, we say, well, the red meat is okay, beef and lamb. What we're concerned about in the supermarkets is basically the chicken and pork, because those conditions are even worse than for the beef and lamb, if there could be such a thing. We have some items in our shopping guide that really raise eyebrows. One of them is Spam. And I don't think Spam is ideal, but for many people, it's their only source of animal fat. We have prisoners who have to buy from the commissary. I can tell you there's no good fats in the prison meals. And we have people whose only choices are supermarkets. So we like to meet people where they are and point them towards the ideal and help them get to the ideal. But you have to start somewhere. And so we do take, the best possible choices from the supermarket and include them in our shopping guide.
Okay. How did saturated fat get such a bad name? I'm sure it's a long story, but how did saturated fat get such a bad name?
It was an absolutely deliberate, calculated campaign on the part of the vegetable oil industry, which was getting started especially, in the early part of the 1900s, but especially after the Second World War, to promote their products, the vegetable oils and the shortenings and the margarines and everything. And they did it by demonizing their competition. And they basically suborned university research. They, got men in white coats to put out lots of phony science. They controlled the journals. It is a really incredible story, and people need to know about this story. And you mentioned the article, The Oiling of America, and that's about this story. We name names. We show how it happened. We show the agencies and the organizations that made this happen. And the results have been absolutely tragic because it's led to an epidemic of chronic disease. And in our children, all the learning disabilities, autism, all of these conditions that are just sapping the energy of our nation are due to this fear of animal fats, especially saturated fats.
Okay, that brings me to my next question, another Facebook question from Gabe.
Mm-hmm.
Please tell us how doctors who say that saturated fat causes atherosclerosis are wrong.
Well, the science just does not support this. And, in fact, just let us reason together. We consume much less saturated fat than we did in 1900 as a nation, and far more of the processed fats. And in 1900, cancer and heart disease and all these degenerative diseases were rare. So there's no way that you can say that saturated fat is causing these diseases when the consumption patterns are going in the opposite direction.
Mm-hmm. That just makes so much sense to me. I always say that too. Saturated fat goes down, consumption of vegetable oils goes up, 300, 400%.
And we know the mechanism whereby vegetable oils and trans fats cause disease. We know that the vegetable oils create free radical storms in the body, uncontrolled reactions, and we know that the trans fats and the shortenings, the partially hydrogenated vegetable oils, inhibit reactions in the body, inhibit enzymes, inhibit receptors. And that's, of course, what most people are eating, and it just leads to biochemical chaos in the body.
I don't think people know about just how processed vegetable oils are. I was on, it might have been Udos's website, and I got to read about the actual processing and the what do you call it, when they take the smell, deodorization process and all those things. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, actually, this process is done in refineries, and I use that word deliberately because they are like oil refineries. The equipment that they use is the same as what is used in oil refineries. And so they start with these seeds already, with lots of pesticides and herbicides and so forth, and they squeeze the oils out at very high temperature. And then they use hexane, which is gasoline basically, to get the rest of the oil out. And remember, liquid vegetable oils are extremely fragile. Then the oils go through a degumming and a caustic refining, and they go through bleaching, and they go through deodorization, and in some cases they go through partial hydrogenation. And all of these processes are, kind of ripping the fabric of these